Welcome, everyone, to 24/7 Sports. I am Tom Loy alongside the 105 guys. We've got Director of Scouting Andrew Ivins and National Analyst Cooper Patagna. Signing day is right around the corner, and we are looking at 2025 recruiting classes all across the country to bring fans a look at their soon-to-be signees. We're going to hit a few superlatives and clearly state our take on a lot of these prospects across the country. Today, we're looking at Oregon. The Ducks have the number 10 recruiting class in 2025. And there are 15 commits set to play for head coach Dan Lanning. Andrew, we will start with you. Give me an early draft pick potential guy with elite traits now, but somebody who might find himself drafted early in the next couple of years.
Yeah, Tom, I think 13 of the 15 inside the top 247. So a lot of guys we think with NFL upside. I'm probably going to surprise some people here. I'm going to go with Dallas Wilson, our number 26 ranked overall player, number 4 wide receiver. I just love the combination of this guy's size and speed. And I've had a little bit more exposure to him than most, I would say, on our team, having seen him play 7-on-7, having seen him come up through the high school ranks over the years. But, 6'0", 2'6", 193 pounds, 10-inch hands. He's got a 92 speed score, according to our friends at Next Gen Prospects. He's very physically assertive. Even if he's not getting the football, this is a guy that will block. He will open up run lanes on the outside. Reminds me a little bit of Trey Harris at Ole Miss, who's been uber productive there in the SEC. We need to vet him in an all-star setting. Excited to see him potentially at the Under Armour All-America game. But, man, I think if it all bakes together, Dallas Wilson is a potential wide receiver 1.
Had a feeling you'd go that direction, Drew. I'm gonna go with Brandon Finny, and this is a guy we've been scouting for quite some time. I've talked about it on the Alts and Audible podcast, and I thought he was a guy that had a chance to really kind of climb our board. And I got to give a lot of credit to our friend Hudson Standish, who's been scouting the DMV. And Brandon Finny, when you think about all the boxes that this guy checks, 3-phase player. Love what he does on the football field. Let's talk about the athlete a little bit. 6'1", 3/4", 180 pounds. He also went 10.85 in the 100 meter, 21.84 in the 200 meter. And like I said, it's great that he's got green numbers. It's great that he's a dream for any NFL evaluator out there. But this dude plays football, right? Can play him corner, can play him at safety. Love what he does at the receiver position as well. I love the versatility. I think he's going to be one of those guys that if he makes it to Oregon, 2 to 3 years down the line, he's going to be an NFL draft darling. So Brandon Finny, a lot of guys that you could choose from, but pretty much a layup for me.
The fact that we're going to have 3 different guys for future first rounder is pretty impressive. I'm going to take the layup on my end and take receiver Cory Moore. He's a freak, a difference maker. The success, what he's doing in high school is likely what he'll do in college, and I expect that to continue in the NFL beyond that. He is such a damn good football player. Day 1 impact, Cooper, we will start with you, a guy who will see the field early and often in year 1. Who do you got?
Well, let's go with Cory Moore. Evan Stewart probably out to the NFL. You think about Trayshawn Holden as well, out after this season. That Oregon receiving core, although talented under Junior Adams, going to be some guys that are going to have to step up next year. And Cory Moore kind of fits that to a T. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Evan Stewart just in terms of being impact ready. Some other names that I kind of threw around there in terms of the play style that kind of matched up with a guy like Cory Moore was Malik Neighbors. And I just love the way that he attacks the football, not only at the catch point, but as a route runner, his ability to create leverage consistently. This dude is ready to play, plays at the highest level of comp in Texas at Duncanville. He's been getting it done for a long time. The other thing about him, how about this? Yeah, he might be under 6 feet, but he's got 10.25 hands, big old mitts, and that's how he plays. So I like Cory Moore here.
I also have Cory Moore. He's a human joystick, and he always makes the first defender, or I should say would-be tackler, miss. Turn on the senior highlights, consistently getting out of trouble, extending plays. He's also another kind of fierce competitor, and you'll notice a trend, I think, if you go up and down Oregon's recruiting class, guys that want to win football games. Dallas Wilson, Cory Moore. One of my favorite stories of the entire cycle, and we talk about these blue-chip guys, is Cory Moore. Number 1, he worked out for Oregon this past summer. Most guys of his status are just hanging out in streets clothes. And he also took some reps at cornerback. We've seen him do that at Duncanville over the years. Just a guy that likes football and, again, is going to do what it takes to win. He's like the best 7-on-7 wide receiver of that stature that I have seen since Jalen Waddle many moons ago. So for me, Cory Moore, and it's exactly what you said, Cooper. I think playing time is going to be available. We know Oregon's going to be in the transfer portal. Tez Johnson's also going to graduate. Like you said, Evan Stewart could be off to the NFL. I think he's someone that could come in and make some headlines in 2025.
I wanted to go a different route, but it's clearly a clean sweep for Cory Moore. I just can't find myself picking anybody over him. He's elite in every way possible, and he's just not one of those guys you keep on the sidelines for too long. I expect him to play early and often. Boom or bust, Ivans, we'll go back to you. An intriguing talent who might outperform or potentially underachieve. Kind of a mystery. Who do you got in this?
I got Zier Wyatt, and we've listed him as a linebacker. We listed him as an edge rusher. If we had a DPR designated pass rusher tag, that's where Zier Wyatt would find his name. And I think he's one of the best in the cycle at that. This dude is supercharged. His get off, his ability to come screaming around the corner and get after the quarterback, it's rare. It shows up time and time again, and it has for the past 4 years at Mater Dei High School. 34.5 sacks over 38 career games, most of them in the Trinity League. That's a pretty decorated resume for a pass rusher. Now, he's a bit of a tweener, and I know people don't like that label on the smaller side, but man, if they can dial it up and get him on the field in certain situations, I think he could certainly excel. Every year we kind of overthink it. I don't think we should overthink it with Zier Wyatt. Size will be a limiting factor, but he can certainly carve out a role for the Ducks.
I went back and forth here. Trey McNutt, Zier Addison, the tackle at Florida. And I'll talk a little bit about Zier Addison, and it's more on the boom side than it is the bust side. It's a guy that we just got into our top 100, 6'4.5", 278 pounds. It's got over 35-inch arms as well. So he doesn't really kind of have that prototypical tackle size, but I also believe he's got the athletic ability to slide inside. I love his ability to pull. I love his ability to get to the second level, and he's gotten better and better. I love what I've seen from him as a senior. We always talk about ascending players. I think that's what Zier Addison is. I hate using the word tweener. It's got me in trouble before. I'm just kind of interested to see, is he going to be a left tackle or right tackle? Is he going to end up playing inside? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that's a good thing, but super intrigued with what the future looks like in Eugene with Zier Addison.
Before you brought up Addison, you mentioned safety Trey McNutt. That's who I went with. He's ranked number 61 overall, but slots him in the second round, early third round pick, right in that cusp. And I'm just a little bit on the fence about him. Whether he's going to be a future first rounder one day, I wouldn't be shocked. But if he's a third or fourth rounder, I could see that too. It's not a knock. He's obviously a terrific football player, very instinctual, very smart, just a guy, and he's super aggressive, which I love. But he's just a guy that I'm glad I don't have to do your job and rank him, because I'm kind of torn all over the place about how special he really is, or just if he's very, very good. Diamond in the rough, Cooper, I'll go back to you. A 3-star prospect who could surprise some people down the road and really emerge as a high-level player and potentially find himself drafted. Who do you got?
I'm chuckling because there's really only one option. That's Demitri Manning, the only 3-star in the class from Bellevue High School in Washington. If you know anything about Bellevue, they're known for the veer there that they run offensively. And Demitri Manning is one of those guys, makes him a little bit more of a difficulty evaluation. But for Dan Lanning, I don't think it was a difficult evaluation at all. I mean, look at these specs, 6'6.5", 345 pounds, over 35-inch arms. It is hard to find that type of size, that type of beef on the West Coast, which makes this one a no-brainer. I think Demitri Manning, ultimately at the end of the day, probably going to move inside. It's got to rework that body a little bit, maybe more of a slower burn for Dan Lanning than some of these guys that he has in the top 247. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be shocked if it's 2 to 3 years from now and Demitri Manning's getting some considerable reps at the interior offensive line position, because that's what you look for, and that's how they built one of the best offensive lines in the Big Ten.
And you forgot the 5'3", and the short shuttle at close to 350 pounds. Doing it on defense as well. I think you can maybe play him as a zero tech if you wanted to go that route. Really like how Manning gets out in space for an individual his size. For the sake of an exercise, I also wrote down Achilles Smith here, Jr. I know he's inside the top 247. I'm talking about our number 15 ranked quarterback, and Oregon is also looking to potentially add another high school signal caller. I don't know. There's something about this kid. Every time I watch him, I'm talking about the game tape, right? Not the highlights, not the Elite 11. I just like this kid's field command and how he handles himself in high pressure situations. Not a great touchdown to interception ratio here as a senior. He's running the football, moving the chains with his legs. I just think he's got that killer instinct at times. He can get out of trouble, make some big time throws. So for me, Achilles Smith, I could see him exceeding all expectations in Eugene. Probably going to need some seasoning, but I like what he has from the tools and the moxie standpoint.
Coop, you mentioned it, only one 3-star prospect, so I kind of went away with that like you did, Ivans. I went with running back De'Aaron Hill, one of the lower-ranked 4-star prospects. I believe he's outside the top 247, but somebody I could eventually see getting drafted. He's complete, super productive in high school. I expect that to continue at Oregon. He can run. I really like that get for the Ducks. But that wraps it up. As I said before, we're going to hit a bunch of schools leading up to December's early signing period. But for Andrew Ivins and Cooper Patagna, I am Tom Loy. As always, stay locked to 247sports.com.